The Australian hotel industry is facing an unprecedented level of expansion, with 100 hotels in the supply pipeline. That provides opportunities, it also provides challenges. To discuss the situation, I've got Ross Beardsell from JLL. Now Ross, what's the situation? Is the Australian hotel industry going to cope with this new supply?
Peter, it's one of the most exciting times for the hotel industry. If we refer back to the 1990s and you look at the economy when it was in a downturn, we had high interest rates of over 18%, high unemployment. If we look at the canvas now for 2016, times are looking good. Hotel industry is looking very positive for the outward signs. And if you look at that across the cities, across Australia, admittedly there's some oversupply currently in Brisbane. If we look at Sydney and Melbourne, it's a very positive outlook. And then in Perth, in the mining sector, there's a change of thinking there as the resources boom has started to soften.
And what about the leisure market? The leisure market, I think, is one of the great stories. The National Visitor Survey stats have come out showing about 7% rise. What about leisure destinations? Is there room for new hotel development there?
The leisure industry is going through an era of an upturn in traffic and numbers, and there's destinations across the country that are benefiting. And those destinations are on the eastern seaboard, they're on the western seaboard, and also in the Northern Territory. And it's interesting to look at these leisure numbers. It's looking at a gateway destination, it's looking at the airport, it's looking at the access. So the opportunity for new hotels and the opportunity to refurbish hotels in our leisure destinations is definitely a consideration.
Now, what about the mining states? Those cities that are experiencing problems, what opportunities do they have? Can they change their spots?
There's the opportunity there for those destinations to morph themselves, to be able to turn into a fast-moving destinational experience. We look at Perth, for example, or looking at Western Australia. The Premier of Western Australia is now also the Tourism Minister. So they're looking at reinventing themselves. We look at Perth, how it's got these new destinational experiences within the city. We look at Darwin. Darwin went through a huge expansion with the resource boom. So there's the opportunities that exist for those destinations to reinvent themselves.
You mentioned governments. Should governments really get involved in tourism and hotel development?
Peter, both federal, state and territory governments play a very important role, and part of that is the approval process. If the approval process can be seamless, that will encourage more development within the country. Then the next step out of that is for hotels to become a preferred employer. And to become a preferred employer, there needs to be the opportunity for more hotel schools to train personnel. So with all these new rooms coming online, there's people and there's teams that will work in those hotels. So it's very important to be able to work with the government, to be able to message the government, to have their support to assist the expansion of hotels within Australia.
Thanks, Ross, and indeed, fascinating times for the Australian hotel industry.